All right, part 2 of 14.1. In the first part, we looked at finding the first point of the vertex. In part 2, we're going to find both points in the vertex. In number 1, we are dealing with standard form. We are missing our C term, so I'm going to plug that in right there. If there's no number next to an x, it's a 1. So our A equals 1, B equals 2. But if there's no number at the end, then it's a 0. So there's nothing there. But our number next to x, there's actually something there. It's a 1. It's a 1x squared. So I've labeled my A, B, and C. I'm going to create a little bit of space for my first point. V equals some number, comma, some other number. And we are using the formula the opposite of B over 2 times A. So the negative B over 2A. We're going to plug in A, B, and C. So I have B here is 2, so the opposite of 2 over 2 times my A value, which is 1. That gives us negative 2 over 2, which is equal to negative 1. So my first point is negative 1. There's one more thing we need to build out now. So everything up until this point is what we did last time, or in part 1. In part 2 now, we are taking the negative 1 and we are going to replace x in our equation with the negative 1 we just found. So what I'm doing is just writing it out in parentheses. And we are then going to replace x with negative 1 in all of these. So I'm going to zoom in here. And we're going to evaluate using PEMDAS. So we're going to look at inside the parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. So there's nothing to evaluate inside the parentheses. There's just nothing going on in there. We can do an exponent. So I'm going to highlight that in purple here. We have a second power. So that means negative 1 times itself. 2 times. So negative 1 times negative 1, which makes positive 1. And then we're doing 2 times negative 1. Actually, let's hold off there. Plus 1. So I did my exponents. Now I'm taking care of multiplication or division from left to right. So as I look from left to right, I see I'm going to multiply 2 times negative 1 to get negative 2. And everything else is staying the same. That one and that one. So that's been taken care of. And now I'm doing addition and subtraction from left to right. So y equals 1 minus 2, which is negative 1 plus 1. That was those two put together. And y equals 0. Negative 1 plus 1. And just kind of distracting myself as I talk through how to solve these. So give me a moment to just kind of look at my work and see if I catch any mistakes that I may have made, because it does happen. And I think we're looking pretty good here. So when we plugged in a negative 1, we got out a 0. All right, number 2. Negative b over 2 times a. We have our a, we have our b, we have our c, and we're building this out. Some number squared minus 2 times some number minus 2. And we know that v is equal to these two things. All right, now that we have kind of all the pieces down, we just start plugging in. So b is negative 2, so we're saying the opposite of negative 2, which is positive 2 over 2 times our a value, which is negative 1. That means we have 2 over negative 2, which means we have negative 1. We can take that value and plug it in, and then we're going to evaluate. So y equals negative 1 squared makes a positive 1. And then we can multiply these up. So negative 2 times a negative 1 is a positive 2. I'm going to bring my other numbers down. This negative times 1 makes a negative 1. And then we're going to put these together. So I see a negative 2 minus 2 is 0. And 0 plus negative 1 is negative 1. So when I plugged in a negative 1, I got out a negative 1. All right, number 3. V equals some number, comma, some other number, negative b over 2 times a. Y equals 2 times some number squared plus 16 times some number plus 28. And we know that this is our a is 2, our b is 16, and c is 28. So we're saying the opposite of b, so the opposite of positive 16, over 2 times a, in this case is 2. When we work that out, we end up with a negative 4. We then take that negative 4 and we're going to plug it in and then evaluate using our order of operations. We do exponents. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. And then we're going to do the multiplication step in just a moment. So now we're saying y equals 2 times 16, which is 32, plus 16 times negative 4. I'm going to get rid of this plus. 16 times negative 4 is negative 64 plus 28. When I put these together, they make a negative 32. And when I put these together, it gives me a negative 4. All right. Negative b over 2 times a. B equals some number, comma, some other number. And y equals 2 times a number squared plus 4 times a number minus 1. And then I have my a, my b, and my c. So a is 2, b is 4, which we're going to use over here, and c is negative 1. So the opposite of b, the opposite of 4, is negative 4 over 2 times a, which is 2. When we evaluate that out, we get negative 1. So that's what we plug in. I'm going to evaluate my squared first, so negative 1 to the second power is positive 1. I'm going to do my multiplication. 2 times 1 is 2. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. And this minus 1 just stays. And then we put these together, so y equals, following our sign rules. All right, we'll do a couple more. Some number I'm using negative b over 2 times a here. That's going to give me my first point, then I'm going to plug it in to get my second point. And I'm labeling a, b, and c. These are attached to the sign. So b is negative 12, a is negative 2, c is negative 21. So in my formula, right here, the opposite of b means the opposite of negative 12, so that's positive 12 over 2 times a, which is negative 2. When I multiply those out, I get negative 4, and then 12 divided by negative 4 is a negative 3. So my first point is negative 3. That gets plugged in here. And then we're going to evaluate some things. So y equals negative 2 times, and I'm working out right here, I'm working out negative 3 to the second power, which is a positive 9. Then I'm going to do my multiplying. So negative 2 times 9 is negative 18. Negative 12 times 3 is positive 36. And this negative 21 just hanging out. I can put these together and get just 18 minus 21. And then when I put those together, 18 minus 21 will give us negative 3. All right, we'll do one more and then call it good. So again, there are several things we can build out without having to do any actual math. The first thing is, in no particular order, negative b over 2 times a. The second thing, we know we're looking for our vertex. The third thing, we can label a, b, and c. And the fourth thing, we can rewrite the equation without the x term, because we know we're going to replace it. All right, so we're going to take the opposite of b, so the opposite of negative 16 is positive 16, over 2 times our a term, which is 2. Gives us 16 over 4, and 16 divided by 4 is 4. So we're putting 4 in for x. We're going to go through. There's nothing we can do inside the parentheses, but we can square this 4, and 4 to the second power is 16. 4 times 4. Okay. We'll continue to work this out. So y equals 2 times 16, which is 32. And then we have, so that made that. Negative 16 times 4 is negative 64. And then plus 29. And now I'm just going to go through and add and subtract from left to right. And we end up with a negative 3. Okay. So that's it for finding the second value. So just to recap, there's a lot that we can build out. We can build out our formula, negative b over 2a. We can say v equals some two numbers. We can write our equation without x. We can replace it with parentheses, and we can label a, b, and c. Once we've done that, then we do our first part here on this side to get our first number. And then we take that number and we plug it in to find our second number.